home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Avitarus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@kbla1580.com. That's advertising at kbla1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got you Black.
First things first.
Things first, it's the DU General, Money B. I'ma put you up on the schedule, 6 to 9, 8 weekdays, not 2 and 7. We got a lot to talk about, so much to pedal through. Unapologetically progressive. Tune to KBLA 1580 to get the mess. We're your ancestors' favorite radio station. First Black on talk radio, left side of the nation. Me and Dominique DiPrima go way back. Tag Smiley making sure the station stays black. Discussing all the issues in our community. We're hosted Black and Brown and others find unity. So let's talk about it. Maybe we can improve it. Digital underground, always down with the movement. So we tune in. The first things first with the queen of Black Talk Radio, Dominique DiPrima. Go sis.
First things first.
KBLA Talk 1580. Good morning and God bless. I'm Dominique DiPrima. This show is called First Things First, and my first thing every single day, giving thanks, giving praise, and asking for blessings from God, asking for the blessings of the ancestors and the elders, and getting on this mic to stir the pot. This is how we do things around here. Hour one, we look to the left coast, what's going on locally. On the Pacific Ocean side of town, hour two, we go national, international, and beyond. And in the third hour, we do a deep dive with a person of interest and or a hot topic. We got a lot of extra things going on today, but as usual, you're welcome in every hour via 800-920-1580, that good old-fashioned landline, not subject to glitches, 800-920-1580. But you can also tap in on social media. I was and monitoring your comments, particularly if you hop on the chat at youtube.com. And again, it's KBLA 1580. We are doing Wealth Building Wednesday because it's Wednesday and we want to build wealth. So we'll meet a Black-owned or BIPOC-owned socially innovative business. And it's just a busy, busy time with all that's going on. I'd love to hear your thoughts, what's going on the national landscape. We'll do a deep dive today on the local left coast, but it impacts the whole world, the entertainment business, the work slowdown, the contract negotiations, and what the landscape is looking like for entertainment jobs to bounce back. You guys know I'm a member of the Screen Actors Guild. But there's a lot going on still. So all of that is on the table, and we are going to take a deep dive with our own Keith Blackwood. So really looking forward to that. But right now, it's the return of the one and only. He's a labor organizer with UTLA. He's a teacher, a lifelong resident of Harbor Gateway, and the first Gen Z candidate to make a serious run at the LA City Council, and it was serious indeed. Bryant Odega, welcome back.
Good morning, Dominique. It's great to be back and to be again in conversation community with the KBLA 1580 family.
So why do we say back? Well, you went to school. You went to the East Coast to Harvard. How was that?
Yes. So I got my master's in education in teaching and teacher leadership at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Um, I'd say it was a roller coaster, to put it lightly.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that because of the protests? I mean, I know you're a dedicated progressive.
Yeah. So when I went to Harvard, I mean, I came in knowing that as a predominantly white institution, and as a university that has a long history in investment and expansion in racism, from being built by the hands of enslaved Black folks to putting out scholarship that promotes anti-Black ideologies, and even now, I believe last year also, those Black students who were swatted. And Harvard has yet to really fully address that. And so I came in knowing that I wasn't going to be roses and rainbows. But what a time. The summer of when I came, affirmative action was struck down. October 1st, Nigerian Independence Day. I actually wore this sweater, taking pictures to really commemorate, just honoring like my ancestors.
Because you're Nigerian American, to be
Right.
clear, yeah.
Right, to honor my ancestors who paved the way for someone like me to be at a place like that, and then just 6 days later, October 7th, and the genocidal campaign that has happened after that. And so being from, Harvard, we're here, to now I'm like protesting Harvard, even on commencement day, I joined, thousands of students who walked out because university was withholding at the time seniors from being able to graduate with their degrees because of the encampments. And so we had our own people's commencement, and it was a tumultuous time, but it was also, even in that, very instructional, because it really, not just Harvard. Harvard being I feel at the crossroads of many issues, from the attacks on DEI, the attacks on Black folks, particularly Black women in places of leadership. I came in, excited that I was going to have, the first, Black Harvard president to sign my, to have her signature, and just for her to have the shortest tenure out of any Harvard president in Harvard's history. And Harvard's been around for, I think it's one of the first universities in the country. And so it was really disappointing to see that. And then the ongoing attacks on the DI executives at Harvard, who happens to also be Black women, and other Black women at Harvard who are also being attacked, and the Title I officers. And so seeing that, while we're seeing, Black history, the teaching of ethnic studies, all across the country being under assault. There was so many things that being there helped me learn even more about what it means to be in the belly of the beast, and how to fight against it.
So when you say you had your own people's graduation, they didn't withhold your degree. They just withheld you from walking?
So I wasn't one of the. So they had so all across the country saw encampments. I wasn't one of the campers, although I did volunteer, in support. And for those who were who stayed overnight, and Harvard would do like ID checks, and eventually folks who got checked received notices from university about like ad boarding, which is like a process they go through to decide what type of punishments they want to give students for violating certain what they perceive as university policies and stuff. And so predominantly the undergraduate students were most affected, including one of the leaders of an org that I was part of, the African American Resistance Organization, which is a Pan-Africanist organization that's all about liberation for all peoples, Prince Williams. But recently, due to public pressure and protests, like the students who received suspensions like Prince, that was removed. and also the students who were withheld from walking, they got their diplomas, but at the end of the day, you know, it is really unfortunate for students who are really just exercising their right. You know, they're unarmed, like it's very peaceful protesting, literally, you know, sitting in an encampment, singing songs and eating, you know, food and doing teachings and stuff, and yet being punished in a very unprecedented way. And so, and then while I'm over there, I'm also seeing what's happening here in Los Angeles, where on contrast to what happened at Harvard, the level of violence that was inflicted upon students here at UCLA, which is my alma mater. I'm at USC, and like it's just really alarming to see these university administrators who talk a lot about, you know, school safety and, you know, student safety and this, that, and third, you know, protecting Jewish students, yet allowing right-wing mobs to brutalize students, many of whom who are also Jewish, fighting for divestments from the illegal Israeli settlements, you know, brutalizing other students, you know, workers as well. And I was really proud that when I came back to Los Angeles, one of the first things I did was attend the first day of the UAW 4811 workers' strike at UCLA in solidarity. Because I think it's important that, you know, we cannot normalize the brutalization of students simply for exercising their First Amendment rights.
Yeah, I didn't realize that they had reinstated those degrees. I guess I wasn't tracking it closely, but that is good news, even though what a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
You spent all this money, all this effort, and then
Well, not too much money. Thankfully, most of my program was funded through fellowships and scholarships.
I mean, but I'm just talking about any student,
Right,
right?
right.
Who has their degree withheld or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you didn't get those fellowships and scholarships without hustling a little bit to make it happen. So whether it's your cash out of your pocket or time out of your life, I'm glad those were reinstated. But to your point, LA Times is reporting that the University of California spent more than $29 million on policing the protests over the Israel's actions in Gaza, and 90% of those dollars went to law enforcement.
Right.
So what a waste of money. I mean, the thing about it is, you know, we keep adding more and more and more money to law enforcement budgets.
Yeah.
The fact that they just went in their pockets and spent $29 million to really oppress students. I know they have to keep, you know, a certain amount of order, but it seems to me that those protests were peaceful and orderly until law enforcement arrived and started jailing people, dragging them off campuses, and, you know, escalating the situations.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, police, you know, that's also been really another instructional moment. I mean, as a Canada Fairleigh City Council, I was also, as a neighborhood council member and then as a Canada Fairleigh City Council candidate, like becoming just more like aware of the fact that, you know, we in our society, especially here in Los Angeles, all the political elites, like they tend to make equal, you know, police with public safety. And what we've seen time and time again is that police are really there for like social control. You know, the police did not keep students safe. They were the ones who, when the right-wing mob, the pro-genocide mob, was beating up college students, right? These are 18, 19, 20-year-olds you're being beat up by these grown folks who come from God knows where, being funded by all types of folks who have, you know, who aren't stakeholders of UCLA. And the police like stood by. And after the mob left, the police then came and did their own fight. Like I could not even imagine it, you know. But you know, it's, you know, reported in LA Times and elsewhere, live streamed. You know, I think that's one of the reasons why this is such a huge issue for young people, for young voters in general, because we're seeing in real time the veneer of like empire, really, like the mask just full on coming off. schools saying that we support free speech, letting all these conservative yahoos, excuse my French, come to our campuses and say all types of bigoted stuff, and they say that's okay because of free speech. But when students, actual students, not guests, students of these universities who, as you mentioned, pay tuition, say, hey, we don't want our tuition dollars to be spent on investing in businesses that are engaged in these illegal Israeli settlements. And the university, in response, has silent right, and so students have to escalate. And that's the history of protests in this country, and they escalate in a very peaceful way with these encampments. And these universities changing the rules. You can't protest here. You can't protest there. You can't do it during business hours, whatever. And it's it's a very radicalizing moment, just like the climate crisis has been for young people, gun violence, etc.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about the climate crisis as well, but I will point out that UCLA spent the most out of all the campuses with $10 million for what they call safety and security, and $400,000 for building repairs and graffiti removal. But a lot of those repairs would not have been necessary had it not been for the escalation by law enforcement and the way that they handled those students. To me, it's just a huge waste of money, and the fact that they're still digging in and saying the students partook of destructive behavior is just stupid. Why don't you sit down at the table like a few universities did and hear what the students are concerned about and see if you can address their demands or get some negotiations going? 800-920-1580 if you want to get in the conversation. Of course, as a Gen Z activist, particularly in that space, but all of the places that you show up, I'm eager to hear your thoughts about Kamala Harris being the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee. We'll look at that and more when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, bro?
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. Just a few short months ago, California Attorney General Rob Bonta filed 11 felony charges against Diana Turan, an assistant district attorney for Los Angeles County. The charges allege that Turan unlawfully accessed confidential computer data, including police officer files in 2018, and continued to use them after joining the DA's office in 2021. Ironically, Turan, who is now on administrative leave, oversaw the Public Integrity Division, responsible for handling high-profile cases of police misconduct and public corruption, including the charges brought against LA City Council member Karen Price last June. To be sure, the case against Price has raised plenty of eyebrows. Indeed, one noted legal scholar has said publicly, and I quote, "Everything about this prosecution reeks," close quote. Could A.G. Bonta, with aspirations to become California governor, be punishing Turan for her role in D.A. George Gascon's police accountability agenda to curry favor with police unions? Could D.A. Gascon be using the case against Price to showcase his tough stance on crime and political corruption as he vies to retain his seat as D.A.? Honestly, I have no idea, but here's what I know for sure. Karen Price has been elected and re-elected by thousands of voters, mostly black and brown, who stand to be further disenfranchised if this matter is not handled correctly, which is why it matters to us at KBLA Talk 1580. When the prosecutor is being prosecuted, it seems to me that at the very least, there ought to be a thorough, top to bottom, independent review of all cases under Diana Taran's purview to ensure that none of these cases have been tainted. Justice and fundamental fairness demand no less if public trust truly matters. And I hope it does. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Tavis Smiley. We welcome your feedback.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Right now, me and Bryant Odega were just plotting on how we could go live on Instagram, if possible. But it's great to see you, Bryant, and congratulations on receiving that master's degree from Harvard, even though you had to deal with the tumultuous, I guess, climate of the protests and the reaction, really the response to the protests being the main thing. Congrats on that. Maybe they needed you there as an organizer from LA. Who knows? That could be a thing. So, major sort of fault lines in politics this week. I feel like if there's one more major announcement, as Senator Alex Padilla said yesterday on this show, I don't know if I could take it. I mean, if they're good news, bring it.
Right.
But Joe Biden announcing that he would not seek re-election after all. He's giving an address to the nation tonight to explain why. And at this point, he endorsed his vice president, Kamala Harris, to be the next president. And at this point, she's wrapped up enough delegates to where she is the presumptive nominee. And you never know what can happen at a convention, but it's not just the delegates. The enthusiasm seems pretty high. Where are you on this? I know, a lot of Gen Z have been very critical of this administration, particularly around Israel. And we don't know, where her policies will be on that. We have some indication. I mean, she's been pretty much in lockstep with Biden. Although there are reports from within the White House that she's had a more sympathetic or empathetic position toward the actual Palestinian people. How are you feeling about Kamala Harris as a presidential candidate?
Yeah, I think so. On Biden withdrawing from the presidential race, I definitely think when I saw the news on Sunday, I was very relieved. I love good news. And, a huge reason is because of the foreign policy. Like President B. Johnson, Biden has had, I think, a really robust domestic program from climate to labor, especially on labor. And, of course, there's always room, for more work to do. But like LBJ, Biden's legacy, I think, will be tainted as a result of our involvement in international affairs that goes against, what we claim to say that we believe, which, in regards to human rights and equality and things of that nature. With LBJ was the Vietnam War, and with Biden is Israel's assault on Gaza. And it's also kind of ironic, just in my own personal journey, being part of Afro now, which has been one of the leading organizations for fighting for free Palestine. And however, just like Black folks have a long-standing history of that, but the original Afro organization in the 60s and 70s was one of the student orgs that was also protesting against the Vietnam War, and that was part of the national movement. Afro was part of the national Black student power movement that helped bring African American studies departments into our universities, SF State being the first and Cal State LA, I believe, being the second.
My alma mater, SF State.
And so I think it was really good for Biden to withdraw. We know that Israel's actions in Gaza has, it's a genocide, right? We're seeing mass killings, not just from the bombs and the weapons that Biden has signed, in terms of military funding, but also through the structural violence, but through the, withholding access to electricity, to water, to humanitarian aid. that Biden has not leveraged the full weight of U.S. resources to pressure Netanyahu. And so with
who will be addressing Congress
which is
today. Yeah. At the invitation of Republicans, that's another conversation. I think it's very problematic that Congress goes around the president just as they did with Obama and inviting Netanyahu, inviting world leaders. It's like the Congress meddling in our foreign policy in a way that's not in alignment with the structure of our government. But anyway, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, addressing Congress and really the country should be considered like a huge honor, and it should be an honor given to folks who deserve it. And I think it is a huge indictment on the moral or the lack of moral leadership in Congress to invite someone who has been engaged, who has led this genocidal campaign, right? This is not just hyperbole. South Africa, which has its own history of dealing with apartheid, has led, a case of genocide against the legal case against Israel, but also you have the international, the ICJ, which is another, which is the court, right, the national court that makes rulings on between different nations or bodies, and they just came out with a ruling, although non-binding, saying that Israel's expansion, right, its occupation, is contrary to international law. Like it's a war crime. It's against the law. And so for him to address the country, I think is really unfortunate. In regards to Vice President Harris, I think...
You will have 1 minute before news and traffic, so we'll just get started and we'll continue on the other side.
Okay. I think we'll have a lot of thoughts. And so I think with Biden dropping out, I think it's good. Progressives and young folks have been calling for him to pass the torch, long before this time. And I think it's unfortunate that it took, donors and all these other folks to be the ones to have the biggest impact. But definitely would like to share my thoughts on the vice president after news.
Yeah, I got to say, the thing that really surprised me the most is how quickly the Democratic Party has seemed to coalesce behind Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris. I mean, it's pretty amazing, actually, the enthusiasm. She had a rally yesterday, a campaign, her first official campaign event. They had to get a bigger venue. The donations are pouring in. Can that enthusiasm be sustained for the next 100 and something days? And how will this play out with young voters? We'll look at that and more when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden will address the nation tonight from the Oval Office. It will be his first on-camera appearance since he dropped out of the 2024 presidential race Sunday. The speech will take place at 8 p.m. Eastern. It will air live here on the Black Information Network. The late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is set to lie in state in Houston City Hall next week following her death on Friday at the age of 74. The African-American Texas Democrat began her political career as a municipal court judge, and then she served on Houston City Council before she was elected to Congress in 1994. She'll become only the second person to be given the honor of lying in state at City Hall. A reminder, President Biden's address to America can be heard live on BIN at 8 p.m. Eastern. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Some people just know the best rate for you is a rate based on you with Allstate, not one based on anyone else. So if you drive safely, you could save money. Good to know. Visit allstate.com or call for a quote today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
Snoop Dogg will be one of the last celebrities to carry the Olympic torch Friday night to kick off the Summer Olympics opening ceremonies in Paris. Carrying the infamous torch is a long-standing tradition to officially start the Olympic Games. Organizers have yet to announce the last person who will carry the torch into the Olympic Stadium to light the flame. A new era for the Chargers begins today under new coach Jim Harbaugh. The Chargers begin their training camp today in El Segundo. Las Vegas oddsmakers are predicting only 8 wins for the Chargers. Harbaugh is used to winning. He's coming off an undefeated and national championship season at Michigan. The 49ers were 6-10 the year before Harbaugh became their head coach. The next season in 2011, the 49ers were 13-3 and made it to the NFC Championship game. They were in the Super Bowl the following year. Do not sleep on Jim Harbaugh. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So, how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
Have you noticed the hype around retinol lately? It's all over my social media. But did you know you can get retinol in a body wash? Amazing, right? Olay Retinol Body Wash is packed with moisturizing vitamin B3 complex plus retinol to transform dry skin to visibly renewed in just 14 days. Try it the next time you shower and see the difference for yourself with Olay Retinol Body Wash for visibly renewed skin in just 14 days. And try Olay Retinol 24 Body Lotion.
To help combat climate change, LADWP is helping neighborhoods have better access to electric vehicles by awarding nearly $130 million in EV rebates to customers just like you. From big savings on used EVs to building new charging plazas, LADWP is charging ahead to help all Angelenos experience the benefits of EVs. Get rebates of up to $4,000 for a used EV and $1,750 for a charger. Learn more at ladwp.com/EV. That's ladwp.com/EV. Finding a path to a meaningful career, one where you're making an impact and making enough money, it can be tough. There's one path, though, that many young adults are landing on that leads them to careers where they can work outdoors, protect our environment, take on climate change, and get paid while they train. It's the California Conservation Corps. You just have to be 18 through 25 years old to enroll, or a U.S. military veteran through age 29, and you have to be a California resident. That's it. There's no education requirement, no employment history needed. Some Corps members need to finish up high school. Others are college grads. But during their 1 year of service, all CCC Corps members can earn the work experience and certifications needed to become a wildland firefighter, forestry technician, install solar, or build trails in our state parks. Learn how you can enroll at ccc.ca.gov. Do this for you. Become the person you want to be through the California Conservation Corps.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
I do thank you. I thank you for waking up with KBLA with Bryant, Odega, and me, myself. So on the topic of Kamala Harris, you personally, but also Gen Z, your generation, and the response, I see that she's got a whole TikTok movement going on with the Brat Summer, or whatever it is, the Kamala Brat Summer, and it seems like, I don't know if it's universal, but I'm seeing a little bit more enthusiasm than what I might have expected from Gen Z. But how are you feeling?
Yeah, so I have a variety of feelings on the vice president now being at the top of the ticket. I think on one level, I think she'll be a stronger candidate than Biden because, she's just a more effective speaker. And like I've been able to watch some of her speeches last week and also this week. And the contrast between her and Biden is like night and day. And especially so in comparison to Donald Trump. And so I think on that front, I think is a positive. I think where I take like issue is, it is the Palestine, the genocide against Palestinians. And although she was the she is the vice president. Biden has been really the biggest champion in the executive branch for Israel. She's going to have to answer. Like what is her position is going to be? What is her policy? Because it's still happening right now, right? Even as she's raking in these dollars from donations, Palestinians are being killed and aid is being withheld, and so from a policy standpoint, she has to confront the Gaza policy. I think in order for our country to move in the right direction, away from what the ICJ has ruled as an illegal act against international law. Like we have to listen to our labor unions, right? So we have, there's been a lot of labor unions from UAW to teacher unions that have been calling for not just a ceasefire, but also stopping funding the military weapons that are being supplied. The NAACP has said the same thing as well. And so, and these are huge constituencies that the vice president is going to need in order to also win as well. In regards to young voters.
Okay, but let me ask you a question here. And before you pivot to young voters, because it's relevant. I've been having conversations with folks on the left. And I see the attacks ramping up on the vice president on the right, along racial lines, along gender lines, along anything they can pull out of their side of their neck. But on the left, I see a lot of people holding a kind of hard line. Well, she needs to denounce the war in Gaza. She needs to step up and speak for reparations. And let's suppose she did that. Automatic loss. She will not win the White House on those positions. So I don't understand. I understand the pressure. I feel like we've got 100 days to win the White House.
Yeah.
And when you look at who could we have a more fruitful negotiation with as a president around reparations, around, U.S. policy towards Israel and towards Gaza, around, real and meaningful reimagining of policing? To me, the answer is clear. So I don't understand these hardcore attacks coming from the left. And I got to tell you, I'm hearing some misogyny. I'm hearing some sort of idealism that we haven't seen hurled at other folks in the same way. Or maybe I'm just more sensitive to it because I'm very concerned about Project 2025, and I'm very concerned about a second Trump term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, we do live in a society that is deeply rooted in racism and sexism and xenophobia. And I think, in terms of like the multitude of thoughts I have on the vice president, that is also a concern I have as well. Because we have seen, with Obama, the type of racist attacks and, threats that has been posed against him.
Right, he had more assassination attempts than any other president.
Right. I think it'll be worse with Vice President Harris because with her, she is, a child of immigrants. And we're seeing a huge rise in xenophobia all across, not just this country, but also in Europe.
And she's a woman.
And she's a woman.
Of course. But, okay, so, again, will you vote for West Abdullah? Maybe you don't want to reveal that. I guess my question is, if folks are really, really concerned about Gaza and reparations, as I am, do you go for Trump, as some I've seen some in the reparations movement, which boggles my mind because the Republicans have given no indication that they'll support reparations. In fact, they've given indications that they are seeking to shut down reparations. Or do they go with a West Abdullah and risk, somehow if you're in a swing state, risk giving Trump a victory? Or do you go with Kamala Harris and say, we know she can win. Clearly she can win. She's within striking distance.
Yeah.
And then say we're going to have a better chance of negotiating improved positions in all of these areas with someone like a Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I think On the Gaza policy, I think good Gaza policy is good politics. In Michigan, we had, I believe, like 100,000 uncommitted votes. And so Michigan, we know, is one of the battleground states. And there's a key constituency there who are concerned about what the White House is going to do about Palestine.
Right, Michigan has a huge Arab American population, for one.
And I think it's notable, in addition to that, even though most of, if not all of the elected Democrats in Michigan, or at least the prominent ones, have endorsed Harris, only one, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, who is the only Palestinian in Congress, has not. And so I think, and that is, significant. I think in order for us to get as many votes as possible in order to beat Donald Trump and the Project 2025 agenda that they're trying to force upon us, I think it's important for the vice president to, address that issue. And now, as we live in a two-party system, and there's a lot of outside influence from folks who are invested in, the military-industrial complex. And I think when you're president, I believe almost every president, if not every single president, has had some type of hand in advancing some type of imperial project, right, or maintain the status quo, basically. And so I do not expect Vice President Harris to be, even if there's some concessions or movements, to be super, anti-imperial. Like, that would be, I wouldn't expect that. However, I think in terms of, from an organizing standpoint, if we want to advance, on climate justice policy, on, reparations, on, labor, a long litany of issues, I think for folks, like, I necessarily would not shame folks who want to vote for Vice President Harris. Because at the end of the day, you either vote for Harris.
Good, because I'm finna do it. I mean, you can try to shame me, but it ain't going to work anyway.
I think at the end of the day, the Harris administration will be more preferential on all these issues than a Trump administration. And I don't think that, I don't want to be too much of a pessimist, but I don't think our chances of being able to survive, a Trump a second Trump term, I think is really low, given what they want to do about the environment. They want to roll back on every single pro-environmental policy. We cannot, withstand further more of these fascist Supreme Court, these justices, not just on Supreme Court, but also all the way down the judicial branch, on education, like the attacks on education, which I think Democrats should also focus a lot more on as well, because we know that if you look at the Labour Party and how they were successful in the UK, a lot of it was about investing more in education. And when we see here in the country, in the US, Project 2025, one of the most central targets is education. Not just like they want to divest from anything that has to do with advancing equity. They want to shut down civil rights offices that has to do with education, and anything else really. They want to do all that they can to destroy, if not make a shell of the Department of Education, withhold federal funding from universities and schools that do DEI work. They want to have their own credentialing program for teachers who are committed to, basically their ideology, and the list goes on. And so, and the list goes on. And so I think with the cards that we are dealt, I think when it comes to voting for president, I think, especially if you live in a battleground state, it's either, to vote for Vice President Harris or a vote against Trump. And I think, at the end of the day, we cannot allow another Trump administration to happen. I think in terms of the young voter enthusiasm, I think we are seeing a lot of that. And it's coming from, I think, a variety of places. We know that when Vice President Harris was a senator, perhaps people can say that it was for political expediency points or progressive points, but she was a co-sponsor of Green New Deal, and she supported.
Whatever the reason is, she did it.
She did it, and that matters.
I mean, I think it's interesting how we parse her motives around that, and we don't do that as much with other politicians. Oh, they did this. Either they did it or they didn't do it. But yeah, I understand your point. So you're saying that's one reason why young people have some enthusiasm for her, is her embrace of the Green New Deal.
Yeah.
I think if people do an honest investigation of her actual record as a prosecutor in San Francisco, they're going to find it's really different from the talking points and misinformation, disinformation that's going around on social media. The quotes of her, little clips taken out of context and clipped together with other stuff. Yeah, I don't agree with everything she's done and said, but she was actually on the progressive side as a prosecutor. She was a prosecutor. Prosecutors do put people in jail. That's their job. But if you look at her actual record and some of the programs she set up in San Francisco, and the real reason she was targeted there was for not seeking the death penalty for a person who killed a police officer. I'm not saying you should kill police officers, but I'm saying if you don't believe in the death penalty and you have to stand on that, then she became targeted by police unions and others, and people don't even factor that in when they're talking about her record as a prosecutor. So I think if you look at the issue of criminal justice, there's some space there too, significant space on the progressive side between her and President Biden. And so, I think those things are important to factor in. We got a lot to talk about. Antonio Villaraigosa, the former mayor of Los Angeles, jumping into the race for governor for 2026 yesterday. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. We have a few other things on our agenda. Going to go a little deeper into some of your work on climate justice in particular, because that's something you are focused on.
Yeah.
Got a lot to talk about. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Help prevent gun violence tragedies. Gun violence restraining orders can help to prevent individuals at risk of harming themselves or others by removing their guns for 21 days up to 5 years. Learn more about how to petition for a GVRO and the role of GVROs in safeguarding communities by visiting lacountygvro.org or by calling 1-833-540-0473. GVROs can save lives.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys. Let's take our auntie to the swap meet. Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8% must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
It's been said that when someone you love has Parkinson's, you have Parkinson's.
The Parkinson's Foundation knows that the disease doesn't just affect the diagnosed. It affects everyone who supports and helps care for them.
If you have questions, the Parkinson's Foundation has answers.
We can help you understand the disease
and give you tips for living a better life.
Find your answers at parkinson.org or call 1-800-473-4636. The Parkinson's Foundation. Better lives together.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Hey, LA residents, it's planting season and the perfect time to get shade trees growing around your home. LADWP and City Plants are giving every resident up to 7 free trees. That's right, 7 free trees delivered right to your door. Trees are great for the environment, help improve air quality, and can help you save on your bill when you use less air conditioning to stay cool indoors. Learn more at ladwp.com/free trees. That's ladwp.com/free trees.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit lafla.org. lafla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Tune in to More Than That with Gia Peppers live this Sunday at 4 p.m. or wherever you listen to podcasts. This episode of More Than That is brought to you by Buick, combining beauty and technology to deliver luxurious experiences. Buick, exceptional by design.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
All right, Bryant, Odega, we are going to do a speed round here because time flies when you're on the radio. And we can come back and do a deep dive on any of these issues should your teaching schedule allow now that you're going to be back in the classroom. Antonio Villaraigosa announcing for governor yesterday morning.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what type of policy platform he puts out during his campaign. What I definitely have concerns about in regards to him is his position on like charter schools and how he basically tried to take over LAUSD. So I'm not the biggest fan. I am. There's a variety of candidates that I'm more like interested in.
Like Tony Thurmond,
Correct.
Betty Yee. I don't know I can't remember who else is.
And definitely Tony
Kolanakis. Yeah, who will be the black candidate. You know, I'm a longtime supporter of Villaraigosa, and I think he's a true progressive. But I can see where you, as a teacher in UTLA organizer, you would take that stance. Michael Tubbs announcing for lieutenant governor, which we talked about a little bit yesterday. Your thoughts?
Right. I think it's really exciting, especially to see like more like young black folks enter the political, continue to lead and run. From Isaac Bryant to now Michael Tubbs running for lieutenant governor. I think it would be huge. I know Senator Bradford's also running for lieutenant governor, who's my state senator. The first internship I actually ever had was in his office actually, and so I am curious to see how that race goes on.
Senator Bradford is a champion for reparations, so I think he's got my vote. But I love Michael Tubbs. He's a great guy. I
The
wish
Green
he was.
Tea Basic Income Program.
I wish he wasn't running against Steve Bradford. Can you run for something else, Mr. Tubbs? Okay, but that'll be an interesting race.
Yeah.
Michelle Chambers. Well, that race is what Michelle Chambers and Laura Richardson, right?
Right. So I'm
To
definitely
take Bradford's seat in the Senate.
right to replace State Senate District 35. So I'll be voting for Michelle Chambers. I think she'll be a good champion for teachers, for educators. I know she's endorsed by Teachers Union, at least in statewide, and her position on homelessness, I think, is far better than her opponent. And so I'm really excited about Michelle Chambers' campaign, and that's who I'll be voting for. And I highly recommend folks, especially if you're concerned about environments, about education, to also support
Michelle Chambers is another one who I view as a true progressive,
Right.
opposed to what I call progressive posers. We just did an event at the WLCAC as part of our climate justice campaign, teaming up with the DWP. They gave away a bunch of air conditioning units. We broadcast from there. It was packed. It was fun. You're working with them?
So I was there a few weeks ago with Fatima, who I know is a friend of the show, at their Mudtown Farms, which is, for those who don't know, is the largest Black-owned urban farm west of Mississippi. Me and Fatima, we were doing like a youth development workshop, and Mudtown Farms had their folks teach our kids about agriculture and farming and the intersections between that and environmental justice. And so I think the work that they're doing for education is really important. But I also know they also distribute like organic food. So I highly encourage folks to go, to volunteer, and to be in space. I think what Mudtown Farms is doing is really revolutionary, and I pray we see more of that all across the country.
Great point. You wanted to say something about climate justice as it relates to AI.
Yeah. So what I've been noticing, especially while I was at Harvard, like the advancement of AI in education from universities like Morehouse, replacing TAs, teaching assistants, with AI, to UC Berkeley working with JSTOR on using AI to summarize other people's work. And now even with LUSD, the second largest school district in the country, to pay, I believe it was like $6 million on an AI chatbot that ultimately failed, and also potentially may have put at risk the privacy data of our students. I think is really concerning, because if you look at the research, especially from the reports that's come out from Google and Microsoft, who have been pushing this AI stuff as well, it is harming our goals of being carbon neutral. And it's actually taking us back because of the huge demand, the energy demand, and the huge carbon emissions that AI gives. And so I think it's really important, especially not just a teacher, but from an education standpoint, I think all stakeholders who are concerned about education and the environment, to really look into what's going on and advocate against this, instead of putting millions of dollars into AI, which will never be a sufficient replacement of human beings, of teachers, of professors, etc.
Gonna have to leave it there. That's a whole show. We'll do that as a whole show. Bryant Odega,
right.
Quickly tell folks how to track you.
Yeah, so folks can follow me on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Bryant Odega, BRYANT ODEGA. And thank you so much, Dominique, for the work that you do. I think it's so important that we support Black media, Black-owned media, and progressive talk radio, speaking truth to power. And it's always a joy and a privilege to be in community with the KBLA 1580 family.
So glad you're back, Bryant. And it's a great time to call me. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden will address the nation tonight from the Oval Office. It will be his first on-camera appearance since he dropped out of the 2024 presidential race Sunday. The speech will take place at 8 p.m. Eastern. It will air live here on the Black Information Network. The late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is set to lie in state in Houston City Hall next week following her death on Friday at the age of 74. The African-American Texas Democrat began her political career as a municipal court judge, and then she served on Houston City Council before she was elected to Congress in 1994. She'll become only the second person to be given the honor of lying in state at City Hall. A reminder, President Biden's address to America can be heard live on BIN at 8 p.m. Eastern. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Some people just know the best rate for you is a rate based on you with Allstate, not one based on anyone else. So if you drive safely, you could save money. Good to know. Visit allstate.com or call for a quote today.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Snoop Dogg will be one of the last celebrities to carry the Olympic torch Friday night to kick off the Summer Olympics opening ceremonies in Paris. Carrying the infamous torch is a long-standing tradition to officially start the Olympic Games. Organizers have yet to announce the last person who will carry the torch into the Olympic Stadium to light the flame. A new era for the Chargers begins today under new coach Jim Harbaugh. The Chargers begin their training camp today in El Segundo. Las Vegas oddsmakers are predicting only 8 wins for the Chargers. Harbaugh is used to winning. He's coming off an undefeated and national championship season at Michigan. The 49ers were 6-10 the year before Harbaugh became their head coach. The next season in 2011, the 49ers were 13-3 and made it to the NFC Championship game. They were in. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversations